Have you ever thought of the lives of rich people in the past eras? Isn't it interesting to know how luxurious their life was? To know how wealthy they were? I've looked at different opinions from different professionals and came down to a list. In today's video, I, your luxury warrior, will talk about the richest people of all time, people from different ages and generations. We have William the Conqueror in our 10th spot with $230 billion. Born around 1028, and by his name alone, you'll probably have an idea as to how he got himself the spot. He not only conquered England in 1066, but he ravaged almost everyone during that time, as their conquest resulted in more or less 100,000 deaths. No wonder that he was one of the largest landowners in England. He died in 1087, all his jewelry were stripped off by Lucas. I guess you really can't take your wealth to the grave then. At our 9th spot is Osman Ali Khan with $236 billion. He was the last ruler of the princely state in Hyderabad in India. He was even featured in Time magazine in 1937 and was said to be the richest person in the world during that time. He was also a philanthropist, as he donated a good amount of his wealth to educational and religious institutions across his country. The 5th biggest polished diamond in the world, which is the Jacob diamond, was in his constant possession. He doesn't wear it as an accessory though, he used it as a paperweight. The files must have been worth more than the jewel. Well, it's no big deal when you have that much money. He has a collection known as the Jewels of Nizams. At our 8th spot is Nikolai Romanov with $300 billion. You must have heard about him or their story and how their wealth later on became the reason why they were massacred. He was unprepared to be the last Tsar of Russia. He himself said that he never wanted the position. Even though he was not the most efficient leader, he enjoyed the perks of being one. During that time, ordinary workers earned 500 rupees annually, but Nikolai had the perks of getting 200,000 rupees per year for his salary. Nikolai, together with his wife, would constantly go on shopping sprees. His coronation was known to be the most expensive coronation in the history of Russia. During the 300th anniversary, everyone who was at the party took home expensive gifts. He sure loves the benefits of the title, but not the responsibility that comes with it. At our 7th spot is Andrew Carnegie with $309 billion. He was introduced to business at the age of 24. He used the things he learned to invest much of his money in the railroad industry. He started the Keystone Bridge Company and the Union Iron Works after the Civil War. He also started Carnegie Steel Company, which was sold to J.P. Morgan. Andrew Carnegie has acquired $13 billion from his venture. This man shared his knowledge through writing the book Gospel of Wealth. He was also known for the famous quote, "The man who dies rich dies disgraced." He was a renowned philanthropist who gave a big sum of his money to charities amounting to almost $4.8 billion. He even gave money to other people and upon his death and left a small portion of his wealth to his family. At our 6th spot is Jacob Fugger with $400 billion. He isn't called Jacob the Rich for nothing. When he reached adulthood, he started mining operations for cinnabar, copper, and silver. He even loaned out his money to the Vatican. It was even used to build the famous Sistine Chapel. He did not enjoy its money for himself alone, as he built a fuggery that became the first low-income housing program in the world. The annual rent was 1 symbolic guilder, which in today's time is equivalent to 88 cents, plus prayers for the Fugger family. Up to this day, the 52 homes are still standing and the rent is still the same. Do you think they still pray for the family? But even though he came from a wealthy family in Italy, he sure knows how to fend for himself, doesn't he? Down to our number 5 spot is John D. Rockefeller. I bet most of you know him. He founded the Standard Oil Company in 1870. His company controlled 90% of oil in the United States. Many people are not a fan of Rockefeller because of his business antiques. You gotta do what you gotta do for the fortune, I guess. The Kaikut home, which stands in the estate known as Pocantico Hills in New York, is his most notable property, which covered 3,510 acres and 70 roads, 75 houses, a golf course, billiard halls, swimming pools, and bowling alleys, tennis courts, his own garden, and a farm. People can always change like what Rockefeller did, even though he was not well liked. He later donated 10% of his income every year to various charities. At our fourth spot is Akbar I with $500 billion. And there are some saying that he is worth even more. Akbar was a direct descendant of Genghis Khan and owned a massive empire in the 1500s known as the Mughal Empire. It is believed that his empire controlled 25% of the world's GDP for a couple of years. A true conqueror, for he tripled the size of the territory he owned by the end of his rule, from India to northern Afghanistan. One of his goals was to reunite the two religions and to give people the freedom to choose. A true leader for that matter. At our third spot is Augustus Caesar. Julius Caesar is more famous, but Augustus is indeed wealthier with a net worth of around $4.3 trillion. He owed a fifth of the wealth of the Roman Empire, which was 30% of the world's GDP during that time, making him the only confirmed trillionaire in history. Some of the wealthy families trusted him as they left part of their estate, expecting that it would give their children political security, plus the 75% inheritance Julius gave him. He said the words, "I found Rome of clay, I leave it to you of marble," upon his death. He brought Rome into the modern age as he founded lots of things like fire services, courier system, and standing army police. He indeed showed exemplary leadership. At our second spot is Shenzong of Song, an emperor that reigned from 1067 to 1085. Shenzong controlled 30% of the world's GDP that time. The Song dynasty was the first to create the world's first paper money and formed the world's first navy. These are not the only good things that happened during this time. The farmers were given the rights to their own property. They were a commercial world power because rice became a staple and their production of it contributed a lot to his wealth. Another addition to the success of this dynasty is their reputation as the top maker of bronzeware. We're now down to our top one in our list. We have Mansa Musa to claim the spot. Do you know him? If not, let me introduce this person to you. Mansa Musa was the ruler of the Mali Empire in the early 1300s. He conquered 24 cities together with more districts during the early years of his time. Yes, he wasn't as famous as the other people in our list until he started traveling to Mecca. The pilgrimage is very sacred for the Muslim religion. Mansa Musa brought with him thousands of soldiers, heralds, and even slaves. Every one of them carried gold, even the camels and horses. His voyage was a display of extreme wealth. Even our modern historians cannot comprehend how wealthy and grand his life was. When Al-Nasir heard that he was approaching Cairo, he invited Mansa Musa to visit his palace. Mansa Musa did not agree at first, but Al-Nasir was consistent. His departure was extravagant as well because the streets were covered in gold. It might not even put a dent in his fortune. As much as the people enjoyed his gifts, it later on depreciated the value of metal in Cairo, Mecca, and Medina for the next coming years. It was said he funded a mosque to help the city recover. He built Sankor Madrasa, a university where you can find 1 million manuscripts. But good things must come to an end because the Mali Empire began to fall right after the death of Mansa Musa. They all have lived a life so lavish and extravagant. Will our modern billionaires make it to this list? Comment your thoughts below. And that is all your Luxury Warrior has for you today. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. As always, prepare to suit up for more of our exciting videos.